Hello and welcome to the Backup and Restore Virtual Machine screencast. In this screencast, we will walk through the process of adding a new data store with the type backup, configure the backup for an individual virtual machine, performing the in-place restore of a VM, as well as restoring a VM to the image data store. OpenNebula supports the virtual machine backup functionality using rsync, restic, or Veeam. The rsync and restic are available in the community and enterprise editions, while Veeam integration is exclusive to the enterprise edition. You may configure the backup on an individual virtual machine level or create a backup job for batch processing of VMs. Backups can be either full or incremental with a variety of settings. You can restore virtual machines in place as a separate image with a virtual machine template or restore the individual disks. In the scope of this demonstration, the environment consists of one node that is hosting the OpenNebula frontend software, one KVM host that is managed by OpenNebula and is running one virtual machine with Nginx. The Nginx web server is serving a simple web page. In the process of the demonstration, the web page is going to be changed and then reverted back using the in-place backup functionality. One node that will be used as the backup target to store all the backups. As the first step, the backup data store must be configured. However, before configuring the actual data store in the Sunstone Web UI, we must ensure that the backup server is reachable via the Secure Shell protocol without a password prompt for the OneAdmin system user. To enable this, we must enroll the Secure Shell keys from each node, including the frontend one. I'm going to start with the frontend node. Enroll the Secure Shell key by running the SSH copy ID command. Now let's verify that the key was enrolled successfully by connecting to the backup server. As seen on the screen, the connection is successful. Switching to the KVM node, unlike the frontend node that has the Secure Shell key pair created to manage the environment, system user OneAdmin on the KVM host is missing the Secure Shell key. This key must be generated first. Execute the SSH keygen command with the default settings to generate a key pair. And then enroll the key by executing the SSH copy ID command. Once again, it is good to verify that the connection can be established to avoid surprises in the future. As seen on the screen, the connection works as expected. Now switching to the Sunstone Web UI, navigate to Storage, Data Stores tab and press the Create button to start the data store creation wizard. In the scope of this demonstration, we're going to configure the rsync-based backup data store. Set the type to backup, give the data store a name, and set the driver to rsync. Proceed to the next screen and add it to the default cluster. Go to the Configuration Attributes screen where you should configure the backup target FQDN or IP and the username. In this environment, the backup system user is named backup-admin. Proceed to the next screen and press the Finish button to save the configuration. Wait until the monitoring process starts to probe the data store and make sure that the disk space has been detected. As seen on the screen, the data store is monitored, thus we can proceed next and set up the backup configuration. In the scope of this demonstration, we are going to set up the backup configuration at the individual virtual machine level. To set up the backup configuration, navigate to the Backup tab and press the Backup Config button. Here we're going to configure the backup specifics like how many restore points to keep. Let's set it to 10. In order to protect the data integrity, you can freeze the file system during the backup. The backups can be incremental or full. Let's proceed with the incremental backups. Increment mode can be set to CBT or snapshot. Let's set it to changed block tracking. Note that if you haven't specified either of these options, then the defaults are going to be used. Press the Accept button to save the changes. Once the backup config is saved, we can execute the backup action. Open the VM Actions drop-down menu and select the backup option. Proceed to the data store selection and select the recently created rsync data store. While the process is running, the state will be shown as backup. The VM will return to its previous state once the backup is over. There's a restore point under the backup tab of an individual virtual machine. The naming convention starts with a unique ID of a VM and then follows with the date when the restore point was made. Triggering the backup action manually is useful at certain occasions, but it's much more convenient to have the backup action executed automatically at a specific time. This can be achieved by using the Scheduled Actions functionality. Navigate to the Scheduled Actions tab and press the Add Action button. Select Backup from the Action drop-down list. Select the respective backup data store from the Backup Data Store drop-down list. For this demo, let's proceed with the periodic type. Considering that these actions are supposed to be periodic, we must set the granularity from hourly execution as the most frequent one to the execution on a yearly basis. Let's proceed with the daily execution. Now we must set the time. Let's set it to 30 minutes after midnight. As the last configurable, you can pick the end type, meaning when this periodic execution should be stopped. You can set this action to end on a specific date or after a certain number of occurrences, or set to never, making it a recurring action that will be executed unless deleted or unless the virtual machine is terminated. Let's set it to never. Press the Accept button to save the scheduled action. You can define multiple scheduled actions if you need to. The target virtual machine is running the Nginx web server with a simple web page. Let's connect to the virtual machine using the VNC console and then alter the web page. Let's substitute the "it works" sentence with the word "changed" to indicate the change. As seen on the screen, the web server is serving the altered web page. Now it's time to perform the in-place restore. Navigate to the VM list and select the virtual machine. In-place restore can only be performed if the virtual machine is powered off. Select the power off action from the drop-down list and observe the state. Once the VM is in the power off state, select the restore option from the VM actions drop-down list. Select the backup and then proceed to the configuration screen. Select the specific restore point from the increment ID list or restore individual disks should you need to. Press Finish to start the restore process. The virtual machine state is going to be restored for a while. Please note that the speed of the recovery heavily depends on the variety of factors. The virtual machine must return back to the power off state, indicating that the restore process is over. Now power off the virtual machine using the resume button. Let's return back to the web page and refresh it. As seen on the screen, the web page is back to its original state. There are occasions when you want to restore the backup as a separate image and the virtual machine template instead of an in-place restore. To execute this type of recovery, navigate to the Storage, Backups, and select the backup you would like to restore. Press the Restore button to start the restore process. The virtual machine template is going to contain some NIC overridings and IP addresses. You may want to toggle the following switches if you plan to run the virtual machine in parallel to the original one. Select an image data store to store the recovered virtual machine images and press the Finish button. The virtual machine template with the name that consists of the virtual machine ID and the unique hash of an increment will appear under the virtual machine templates. All the restored images can be found under the Storage Images tab. Please note that it may take some time to restore all the images. Image naming follows the same pattern as the virtual machine template. Once all of the images are in the ready state, you may now proceed to deploy this virtual machine. And this concludes the Backup and Restore Virtual Machine screencast, where we have shown how to configure the rsync-based backup data store, create the backup configuration for an individual VM, schedule the recurring backups using the scheduled actions, as well as perform the in-place restore and restore the virtual machine as a separate template and image. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next screencast.